Well, good afternoon, everyone. Obviously, the Senate is waiting on the House with regard to the tax extender package, the way forward on funding the government, and the National Defense Authorization Act. Once those measures are received, we'll decide how to go forward. But I think everybody agrees on a bipartisan basis. Those are the three things we simply must do here at the end of the session. Fund the government, make sure we don't have any retroactive tax increases, and follow the tradition of many years, which is to pass a National Defense Authorization Act. I'm confident the Senate will do that before we depart for the holidays.
Well, obviously, we had a very significant and important election on November the 4th, and the final results of that election, as far as the Senate's concerned, will be decided on Saturday, December the 6th. Since that time, though, it appears the President has really not gotten the message that the American people were trying to send, because he's poisoned the well two separate times, threatening basically to expose the American taxpayers to a retroactive tax in the face of a bipartisan negotiation led by the current majority leader and other leaders in the Democratic Party, resulting in now having to pass a short-term tax extender bill that the Senator McConnell mentioned in order to avoid that retroactive tax. And then, of course, there was poisoning the well when it comes to trying to fix our broken immigration system by issuing this lawless executive action and making it that much harder for us to do what we need to do to fix our broken immigration system. And then, as if the last week wasn't interesting enough, to have Senator Schumer, the senior senator from New York, admit that the Democrats blew their majority by focusing on the wrong problem was pretty revealing. We're going to have a new management in the Senate in January. We are committed to focusing on the economy and on jobs and the things that confront the average American family, and to work with Democrats and hopefully a president who will reconsider the way he deals with Congress. He's not going to be able to do things unilaterally. If we're going to get things done, he's going to need to work with us and try to find common ground. We're certainly committed to trying to do that.
Well, as Senator Cornyn pointed out, since the election we've seen this constant Democrat-on-Democrat violence, family feuds, if you will, and what this infighting is doing is jeopardizing, unfortunately for a lot of Americans, legislation that would be good for jobs in the economy. And the most recent example of that is the tax bill that's they were trying to get moving here, and had an agreement between the Senate Democrats and the leadership in the House, and until the President interrupted that. And so you've got the White House fighting with the Senate Democrats, and Senate Democrats fighting with each other, which makes it fairly complicated to navigate the lame duck and get the things that need to be done before the end of the year. But the one thing I will tell you is that when, as was pointed out, Republicans control the Senate in January, we're going to have a very clear focus. It's going to be about jobs, the economy, and the middle class. And we think it's critically important for the American people who care deeply about those issues that they have a Congress that's responsive to them and is working to address, through public policy here, those important needs that we have in our economy. And as Senator Cornyn also pointed out, it was fairly remarkable to have the number 3 Democrat in the Senate say last week that Obamacare was a mistake. That is a really, really remarkable statement. If you think about it. And he went on to say that what the American people wanted to focus on was better wages and jobs. And we couldn't agree more. It is about jobs, it's about better wages, higher take-home pay, better standard of living, better quality of life for future generations. That's what we want to stay focused on. And ironically, the Dems now are talking about issues like immigration, climate, things that get very far afield from the issues that I think the American people care the most about, which is jobs, the economy, and how to make their futures better and brighter.
The President continues to ignore the wishes of the American people. On the day before Thanksgiving, the President took another dramatic turn to the left by coming out with the mother of all regulations. It's called the most expensive regulation of all times on ozone. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, over 600 pages of regulations, an appendix, another 575 pages of additional red tape that is going to impact families and communities all around the country in terms of manufacturing, agriculture production, energy production, and just take-home pay for people. It affects their jobs. It affects the cost of their daily lives with these new regulations. The President continues to refuse to listen to the wants and needs of the American people. We have opportunities to address it through oversight hearings on the true cost of the regulations and the impact on families and their take-home pay. And we will use all of the tools in our toolbox to go after it in terms of appropriations, budgets, as well as all of the other tools, including the Congressional Review Act, to try to help America get back to work in spite of the efforts by this President to take the other road.
You know, I'll also add to that the administration always says on these excessive regulations that somehow the regulations on our utility bills are going to be paid for by the utility companies, or the utility companies and manufacturers. That's going to be paid by everybody that has a utility bill. This add-on the day before Thanksgiving, you don't issue a regulation the day before Thanksgiving because you want people to look at it carefully. You issue it the day before Thanksgiving because you don't want people to know the impact this is going to have on them. And on people that can't pay their utility bills now, on young people that won't have the job opportunities they'd like to have. You know, there's already a regulation proposal out there that hasn't, it's in the comment period. In my state of Missouri, it would raise the utility bill by 50% over the next 6 years. Now, for every family that's already having a hard time paying their utility bill, when they add 50% on top of that bill they can barely pay now, that's a big problem. For every job that might be created, but today's utility bill is a problem, 50% is a much bigger problem. And there's a water rule out there that even the SBA in the President's administration has asked the EPA not to move forward on this water rule because of the unnecessary and indefensible economic consequences. I can't think of another administration where you had people in the administration publicly coming out and saying, don't move forward with these rules until you really think carefully about how much damage they're going to do to the economy.
Senator McConnell. Senator McCain says the House next year should move first on immigration reform before the Senate. Do you agree with that?
My goodness. I'm not here today to announce anything with regard to next year's schedule. What I can tell you is the Speaker and I have made a point of staying in close consultation over the last 8 years, and that's going to continue.
Senator McConnell, if the Supreme Court throws out federal healthcare subsidies on the federal exchange, would you be open in any way to a tweak in the law or a legislative change in the law that allows those subsidies to be doled out, or would you insist on starting over?
Well, obviously, if the Supreme Court were to rule, as they might rule in this particular case, I think for sure Congress is back in the business of taking a look at health care in a comprehensive way. It's hard to predict what the appropriate response would be before we see what they rule. But I think it's reasonable to assume that in a new Senate, certain things will be voted on. Things like the elimination of the 40-hour work week, things like the medical device tax, things like the individual mandate, things like the health insurance premium tax. If the court were to rule the way they might, we could be in a very large, comprehensive revisitation of the whole issue. Okay, thanks everybody.